So then we are back with more understanding from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation is from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, so then we can understand the time of the end as per Yirmiyahu the prophet. We find then the 61st chapter known as Isaiah, but truly it is Yirmiyahu. We find then the layer of understanding of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. These cities are not Israel. Let's be very clear, and Israel can't manipulate the holy instructions. Those are absolutely unmovable, and they must never be changed. So then, Israel is then in a position where they can't change the holy instructions. The only way they can be useful for the work of the Creator is by doing what the Messiah told them to do and observe. In other words, to form then holy cities, and then becoming then guidance of nations, and then obviously working and making sure then Israel is then pruned or then taught in ways of the Messiah via Elohim, or then the seven spirits of Elohim, seven functions. So then at this time, where we find then the nations adjusting themselves regarding then the restoration period, not only of the holy cities, but then the Gentiles also included, then we find obviously areas of countries and kingdoms adjusting themselves. Firstly, we find our country then lacking leadership as far as our economy, and then making sure taxation and freighting, those are then combined. Thus far, we have not heard a word of it, but we do understand that the freighting must become extremely important, as we understand the Messiah said later in Galah. Then the freighters of the earth explain then the Messiah himself, indicating the importance of volume of freight. So we must combine this area with Daniel and also the time of the restoration period, where then we must then have the retailing part of it, and then explaining why then the retailers are already complaining because there is not enough trade going on. So then when you understand then the retailers lacking of more people coming and purchasing the products, obviously more people are buying online. These should give then a red flag for the government of then instituting a freighting department where then taxation is combined with it. This means then upgrading the entire taxation system and combining then freighting with taxation. So then the government can stabilize its subsystem. Why do we say subsystem? Because the Chinese system is yet coming. As we understand from the Asian market, firstly then, why are they so prominent? Because of the teachings of Shaliach Shaul. He was then in Asia Minor explaining the intricacies of yet the kingdom to come during the time of transition, from the first tabernacle service to the second tabernacle service. Thus you understand the two menorahs when you read Revelation. During the period of time of transition, then Shaliach Shaul was explaining the areas related with the trade, because Shaliach Shaul did understand Ezekiel the 37th chapter, the two sticks or the two sons of Ibrahim. So then we find during this era then the trade of the Pacific or then the Asia market becoming available for the rest of the world, where then the middleman no longer exists. When it was created then the middleman? Well, let's understand then after the Yohanan, roughly 100 years after the ascension of the Messiah, then Yohanan or John was then in the first holy city, and then he gathered the documents of the time of the transition in his holy first city, and he organized them and he straightened out those other 7 cities in Asia Minor. Thus then you understand what it meant because those 7 cities, they were in sin. The Messiah said, "Go therefore around the world and form holy cities." So Yohanan, obviously, in order for the Messiah to speak with him from the Holy of Holies, because the Messiah had taken the place of his Father, remember? The authority was given to him in heaven and earth. He was in charge of the Holy of Holies. The Messiah wouldn't have spoken these revelations except when the city then was completed as per instructions, because he was then revealing the autumn feast. He had to be completed so then he could write to those other cities how to set up their own cities. But then during this time, where then we find the nations then preparing themselves for what's coming. So then the Chinese system, or the trade of the end, must become available then for every person. Then you begin your understanding of the volume of trade via freight. So the main complaint of the retailers is because there is not enough buyers. Of course, they are buying online. This means more freighting. That's why the freighting companies are growing by leaps and bounds. But then not only this, the multiplication of this freight is going to become absolutely, in quote, astronomical. But then the situation began to change a bit. A couple of months ago, the nations went to China for a visit and reunion. Then they came back, and then they started to work against the Chinese system. So then you find then Daniel, the situation regarding the bell and the dragon, where you then understand what it means, the Babylonian system versus then the dragon system. Why do we say dragon? Because it has to do with the precision. Outside of tabernacling, the dragon must be acknowledged every time, because he is then the being in charge of this planet as far as other than tabernacling. So then, not only this, but then we find other nations, such as USA, having a very sinister plan for our future, unfortunately. And people should be informed. As they understand, there are FEMA camps. Those are absolutely related with those non-legals. And there are many of those FEMA camps around the nation. Our nation then is divided by 10 areas, where each of those people in charge of those areas, they report. And then the nation has built then nearly ready the Ozarks, where there is new capital over there of the United States, and then lots of places underground. And from there, this country thinks they can manage the world. The only problem is, we are not understanding then the bell and the dragon. This system concocted by USA obviously is a Balian system or Babylonian system. And there is a situation. The dragon must have his way, because the trade must be direct as it was during the time of Ishmael. Then we understand the first stick given to Ishmael later because of the amount of crude. So when we combine then this time, where then we understand Daniel, Bel and the dragon, then later we understand why so many people they are going to be in their computers day and night investing, because it's a new system providing jobs for thousands. But then this time we find then our president went then to Central America, went to Panama and Nicaragua and many places of the Central America, trying then to come up with a disguise as far as some cyber partnership of security of some sort. And we understand precisely what the U.S. wants is a military base in Panama. So as then the same topic used by Eric Holder in New Zealand. The U.S. wants to be in both places. So then we find the situation with the bell and the dragon very vivid. But then we found out also a couple days ago or so, then the Northern Kingdom revitalizing its system. Then Mr. Putin, obviously, he gave then the honors of those most prominent people involved with the science and medical field and industry. And those are very typical of the time of the Soviet Union. So this tradition was revitalized. You know what this means? The era of the Cold War is returning. Not with the same intensity as it was before, but it is returning. In areas of international waters, for instance, or international areas of value, for instance, are going to be obviously disputed. This, in fact, is very evident because then you find Australia already having plans of buying 12 aircrafts, and then they want to build 12 submarines. Then you find Indonesia wanting then to match up Australia's forces then even further than Australia. China has a huge military, so we can understand then the individuality of nations and then the strategic points of this planet. So this visit over there in Central America, that is none other reason other than having bases in Panama and then also in New Zealand. You don't play around with security cyber junk. People, they're not stupid. Panama next year is going to be available, then even the category of ships or then the nomenclature of ships must change by next year. This means larger ships can be built, means more volume, more parcels. So then we can expect then the Cold War, not with the same intensity as in the past, but a lot of disputes around the world. Most often international areas where there is no claim. So then obviously more submarines around, underwater then patrols. But then the situation must become much more intense when then the Chinese, then some point they're going to be cornered. Because the intention of the US is to take out China from the world's trade. Like it or not, it's true. But the Chinese, they have ace card, the Northern Kingdom, the divinely guided area where then we understand why then the situation of the Northern Kingdom becomes then the second time higher than the first time. So when you read Daniel the 11th chapter, you understand. So we best prepare ourselves in becoming more educated with the holy instructions because they're absolutely true. Every layer of understanding of those prophetic people are absolutely true. But we must understand from tabernacling viewpoint where then Israel, they play no part in it other than being obedient of what the Messiah said to do and observe. If they think they can play around with prophecies and try to mesmerize the people to get their way, forget it. The future is already set. The Creator said of His own people, they are contrary people. They are rebels. So He has set the agenda as it was, 2,500 years ago plus. It is unfolding before our very eyes. So then at some point we are going to find then China very uncomfortable with this encroachment of the West, and then comes the hiring of the Northern Kingdom. By this time, then, the relationship of the BRICS then must be much more developed and stronger, because then we find the Eurozone dismantling itself. We find the United Kingdom trying to get away from it as fast as they can, because they are very wise, because they understand the Eurozone is not going to last for very long. So this Chinese system at some point must become available for every nation, so then can provide jobs for thousands. Because the Babylonian system is a system of slavery. You put the midman in a situation, it becomes a slavery. There are so many people wasting so much, and so many people having a civilized slavery. So if you have then a decent computer, you can be rich yourself. So then let's watch then the news, because whatsoever the combination of this country, United States, with Japan and Australia, it's not going to work. These countries are going to invest a lot of money in what they think should be done, and it's not going to be done as they think. And we are in a very dangerous situation, because we are not taxing properly. We are not tackling online purchases. We are not tackling taxation. When the system becomes available and then the freighting and taxation is not set up, it's going to be disastrous. The volume is going to be overwhelming. And we know it's coming, because you must combine what Daniel said. High knowledge at the end from a tradesperson does not mean the science. It does not mean mathematics. It does not mean studying more in university and receiving a diploma. It is the completion of the prophecy from a tradesperson viewpoint, directing, leading the Ishmaelites. So if you think you can have this understanding, high knowledge, for your own use, you are wrong. It is high knowledge for trade. That's what it was made for. So then, the sinister plan of the Ozarks, we understand it won't work. It won't work because our system then won't be valid. The only way this system could be valid if we would neutralize the Chinese system. And that's why we find then this country amplifying its military presence around the world, because this country wants to take over, disregarding then the other countries. And we know it's not going to work. So then, if we want trouble in the future, we continue on in this path, then we must face in the very near future our friends of the 60s. And we know won't be very easy. If you are a smart person and you read the news, after this tradition restored ever since the Soviet Union, it should give you some information of what's coming. And some time ago, the Northern Kingdom had an upgrade of their military. So we can expect the tensions to become very evident. And then the Chinese, obviously, to protect their interests, then they forward every nation doing trade with China, paperwork-wise, making deals and making sure then they hire factories over there and so on and so forth, directly to the Northern Kingdom. These would filter the entire system. Because then conditions are enforced. And as we understand it from the 11th chapter of Daniel, then you can precisely understand the relationship of the kingdom of the north and Africa. Africa is the kingdom of the south, yet birthing. We find exclusive understanding of the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. This means the vast majority of the riches of Africa must be managed by the northern kingdom. Not stealing, but managed. Providing them protection for the Chinese system. So then when Europe would dismantle itself of the Eurozone, and then United States then retrieve, then we'd rebuild ourselves as we should have, and then shortly after, then the system becomes available for other people. So thousands of people doing nothing, having no job, that they can get jobs, only have a computer. So some people say, boy, it would be so nice if we would know the future. Well, there it is, given. And the plan is more than 2,500 years old. So the more this country of ours then unite with other countries and trying to make up some military strategic areas, forget it, it won't work. Because try to understand this point, the combination of China and the Northern Kingdom, it's not only trade. They share the same military tactics and procedures. So can we match then the fierce Northern Kingdom with the logistics of China? So let's try to understand it from this angle. You find in the Chinese very peaceful people wanting trade. Then we find an encroacher. Then they hire a manager. And this manager has then power given also for military decisions. So let's try to understand precisely where we are going with our plans, because thus far our plans are a joke. We think we have such a modern military, it's not even compared with China's. And then we try to combine it with Australia, Japan, not even close. But when you combine China and the Northern Kingdom's military, then your eyebrows should rise up, huh? So our president over there making his tour in Central America, he's wasting his time. 100% time wasted. The Ozarks is a joke. FEMA camp is a joke. The whole project is wasted money. What might be helpful is then the Gulf Coast, if they get their depopulation plan because they want to turn out then the entire area as a giant refinery. Then might be helpful because it's important having crude. If our freighters can do their job. Because thus far the government does not line up with taxation. So let's understand, the more we nose around and we don't understand the instructions, the more dangerous it becomes. We can't do what we used to do. We must humble ourselves and rebuild. The Creator has the situation under the control. No person is going to release an atomic bomb until the time comes. If we do, if we are trustworthy, the situation maintains itself. So this Holder guy that went to New Zealand over there, he is wasting his time. New Zealand won't budge. Australia has given in. They want to join up with the West and buy more aircrafts and more submarines, and so it gives you then the proper understanding of the Cold War coming. So if we want to show ourselves wise, the best we can ever do is then retrieving from the world's market as far as worldwide responsibilities until we are then rebuilt and take care of our nation. Because there is no way of matching both of those places. The combination of China and the Northern Kingdom, there is no place in this earth that can combine. So let's make sure we understand. The Chinese, they are very peaceful. But when they join up with Northern Kingdom, then the military of China is at the disposal of the Northern Kingdom. And the Northern Kingdom, they don't think as the same as the Chinese. They are a bit more unique. And the governments, they understand what this unique means. So let's try then to stop screwing around and do what we should be doing. Work in our economy.